Hi guys, so today we're going to be drawing my version of a cartoon slash manga slash comic book face. So if I'm drawing cartoon characters or for my not fully realistic digital and sketch art, this is how I draw a forward facing female face. So we're going to attempt to try this with my camera in the most awkward setup ever. I need to buy like a head camera. So the first thing I do is kind of draw a loose circle. This does not have to be perfect. I mean, mine are rarely perfect. I just do the quickest, most sketchy circle that I can, really. And one important thing to keep in mind is that, of course, the size of your circle will affect the size of the head. The head's not going to be exactly this size. It's going to be slightly bigger than this. And therefore, if you're drawing lots of people in a scene, you want to make sure that you've kind of drawn the circles for their heads about the same size. And then that will help you to keep everyone having a similar sized head, so you don't end up with like a couple of people with massive heads, a couple of people with small heads. The next step is to just draw a line straight down the middle. So one thing to note is that I don't really use these guidelines that much anymore. I've drawn so many faces that I actually just kind of sketch it on the fly. However, I've tried to use some guidelines to illustrate how I learned, and so that it will help you kind of replicate a similar effect. But rest assured that when you have practiced enough, you can, especially if you're only drawing one person, you can get away with just going straight into it. A lot of the time I will just use the circle just for sizing, but a lot of the other lines I don't really have to use. So this line is just ever so slightly shorter than about half of your circle. And again, you want to draw a line horizontally just under half of the circle. So depending on who you watch, these lines will nearly always mean something different. Some people use the same thing. For me, this line is actually where I draw the eyes. And so for me, it pinpoints where I can draw curves on the face. So, to draw a forward-facing face, there are several important curves of the face to be aware of. So, beside your eye, your face always goes in. If you look at a realistic person, this bit always curves in a little. So you want to curve in, then kind of straighten up. Not like massively, but you're ever so slightly straight, slightly curving down. Then when you reach about the bottom of this circle, you want to even more tightly go in and come into a kind of chin. So you're kind of curving in, around, in again, and round off at a chin. Then you want to replicate this on the other side. And I have leaned quite heavy just so this is all visible, but you want to kind of do this quite light because sometimes you don't get them the exact same on both sides. So do it quite lightly and kind of use your eye to follow the other side. Ooh, that's a bit thin. I don't always draw a face perfect. A lot of the time I'll go back, move a lot of what I've drawn. Especially the chin. I don't know, I think I've indented this chin a little too much. Don't know if I love her. So, now that you've drawn that, we're gonna go in and look at some of the features. This is not gonna be specifically on how to draw features here. I will do separate videos on how to do the eyes, specifically like coloring the eyes, how to shade a nose, how to do the mouth. But this will give you some quick pointers on placing of these features. So I like to start off with the mouth. That is completely personal preference. Other people may have different preferences. I only do that because when I start with the mouth, it helps me place the rest of my face better. So the mouth, if you see where I've kind of just curved in here, the mouth goes in between these points. You don't want it too low and you don't want it too high. Although if in doubt, too high is normally slightly better. So we're just gonna drop in here and do the mouth. Obviously, of course, whichever kind of mouth you give her is going to affect the expression. I'm kind of just going for a fairly regular expression here. I always do a little line, And then I never do an upper line. Some people do an upper line. I only ever shade for the upper lip. Of course, if you're drawing a larger face, a lot more detail goes into each feature. When you're drawing a smaller face, trying to put in the same level of detail often looks over cluttered. So if I was drawing this pair of lips 10 times the size, or on a face that filled this entire sheet, they would have a lot more sketch detail, a lot more shade detail going on. Features more. I'm just gonna shave off this little additional thick line I had here. Sorry, that's kind of how I get my lines right. Some people draw, I normally do that much lighter. As I said, I'm drawing quite heavy here so that you can see, but I normally draw quite a few very sketchy light lines and go down and over it until I get it where I want it and where it looks fairly even to the other side. Then, just where the bottom of your circle is crossing this vertical line, which mine isn't even perfect, but that doesn't really matter. You just kind of can use the eye. And for a nose, you don't want to do a lot too dark. So this is the only things I do slightly heavier is the little nostrils, and they're kind of a little tiny curved line. Not too big, not too small. Then the little, very lightly in pencil, I kind of do a little archy bit for under the nose. I don't know any of the names of the anatomy of the nose. So whatever this bit is called. Then this is very, very lightly, just around the side of the nostrils. Do a little line, just so I can kind of see what size her nose is going to be. And my entire art process is me making mistakes. So then my eyes, this is just where the top of the eye hits. So you want to do just about in line with the end of the nose. So I've just gone ahead and sketched in one eye here. As you can see, it's just slightly further over than where the end of the nose is. You never want them closer than the width of the nose. Make an eye slightly wider. If you prefer a more cartoony look, you can make an eye smaller. That will make it look more realistic. I like to go kind of somewhere between the two, slightly bigger, so I can make it a bit more shiny and a bit more girly looking. So you kind of want this little, the little corner of the eye. If you kind of line that up on the other side of the face, that's a really helpful way to get your eyes quite even. So you want to keep looking at the other eye, looking at what you're doing, looking at the other eye, looking at what you're doing, looking at the other eye, and kind of using your head's ability to replicate that itself. You're not thinking about it too much. You're kind of letting your head be like, I'm doing that same curve, I'm doing that same curve, I'm doing that same curve. It's very difficult to explain, but to get quite even eyes, yeah. Try line this up, try line this little line up. I have this line so I can see that one hasn't gone much higher than the other. And I also often only do this bare outline. Some people, very often if you try to sketch and color in this eye and then go in and do the next eye, it's much harder to get it even because you can't see where the bare structure of this eye was, and it's these lines are the ones that matter. And once you start shading in eyelashes and stuff, then it becomes very hard to know where this upper line needs to go on the other eye. You just want to go a little bit above the eye. If they're closer to the eye, it can change how someone looks. If they are thinner or thicker, the angle of your eyebrows, these will all affect the expression on your face. So I'm kind of just going for fairly blasé, nothing too fancy going on here, kind of eyebrow look. I just do them very light. I kind of do them from the very front of the eye. Sometimes if I'm trying to draw someone who's angry or upset, I will push them closer to this line. And I will change the bend that's going on and everything for emotional purposes. Just adding a few more eyelashes, excuse me. A little bit of shade for blushies. I like to do a little circle so it looks like they're sparkly. Off her little noggin right along there. And I always like to do a little rim of shade along the edge of someone's face. I think it makes them look slimmer. So, one thing to remember, I'm just gonna draw a quick little hairstyle. One thing to remember with drawing hair is that some people will draw little pointy bits here. I often find it makes hair look lighter and more floaty, realistic if you don't draw many little points. Occasionally, like I can do a little point occasionally, but I personally think unless I'm drawing very thin strands of hair, it's quite nice not to just join up these into little points, because right, and then last step, we just want to put in a little neck here. So on the female neck is much more narrow than a male neck. A male neck I would kind of put normally straight from where the face begins to curve in. For female face, I'll make it narrower than this. Some people give their characters very thin necks. As I said, I like mine to look quite realistic, so I give them a slightly on the larger side neck than some artists whose necks would be like here. The fairly finished female face, I will just lift this up to show you. So this is kind of the look we've gone for. Obviously, you have slightly different female faces depending on how you draw them, where you place the lips, giving them bigger, smaller lips, all these kind of details. Just kind of got a shaggy hairstyle going on here because I was trying to draw around my camera, which is why I need to get a headpiece to attach it to. But I hope that has been helpful. I am going to do some more tutorials on male faces and many different angles of the faces and features of the faces eventually as well. So let me know what you like below, and I'll be sure to probably draw it and get it out there. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and yeah, hit that notification bell if you'd like more drawing tutorials in the future.